Hi guys, good Thursday. If it is Thursday when you're watching this, it's Thursday here, so good Thursday to me. And we're now going to have a look at a video. I'm going to keep this one, try to keep it a bit shorter maybe, but we're going to look at a bit of analysis. I'll get back to the blitz tomorrow. Might try some 1 minute blitz tomorrow for the first time, so that's going to be chaotic. But a couple of people asked me to analyse a game I had against the current world champion Magnus Carlsen, and well, I was looking for stuff to do and I came across this game, so I thought I'd do a quick video on it. Now this may be a little bit big-headed of me to show off my win against the world champion, but I don't care. No, you know, let's just put this into context. This game was played in 2005 in Gausdal, Norway, a beautiful mountain resort in by Lillehammer, quite near Lillehammer, where they had the Winter Olympics in Norway. Up a hill, snow everywhere. It's a little chalet where people go skiing. Well, I say little chalet, big chalet. Lovely fresh salmon served every day. Beautiful place. And I got invited to play there. And I faced Magnus. I thought it was in round 3. I've been told it was round 4, but I can recall round 3, and we're both on 0 out of 2 in a very strong all-play-all. Now, Magnus is not the Magnus he is nowadays. He was still 25-50 rating, and he was about knee height. You know, I'd look down at him. He'd play his moves over the board like this. He'd poke up and go, oh yeah, like this, you know. He was basically a baby at the board, and he showed amazing talent in this game. And of course, it's nice for me to beat him, but you've got to beat these guys when they're babies, because you're not going to get a chance with their adults. And after the game, we looked at the game. He was extremely pleasant. He wasn't so upset, even though he moved to 0 out of 3, I believe, or half out of 4, other people have said, but I can't remember. My memory's a bit crap. And it was a very interesting game. I was maybe a bit fortunate even to win. And we'll have a look at this game soon. Now, I've seen some of you arguing about my comment possibly about doing this shot thing when I do the broadcast on Sunday. Now, before we get going, I'd just like to say, you know, I don't want you guys arguing. I love you all. And I like to thank you all so much for watching my videos. So it's sad to see you arguing between yourselves and calling each other names. That's not nice. It's, you know, we're all here to have fun and etc. etc. And I thank you so much for tuning in and your support. Not sure what I'm going to do, if I'm going to do it or not. I'll decide later on. My decision, you know. And I will try to do a stream on Sunday. I'll let you guys know tomorrow what time that stream will be, and I'll put a YouTube video up just before I do the stream on Sunday, so you know when I'm starting, as someone suggested. I'm going to get my stream channel set up today. Check on my Twitter handle as GingerGM. You can find out information then when I'll be streaming, and like I say, on YouTube I'll try to keep you in touch with the idea. Okay, but I don't know what I'm going to do for the Sunday. I've got some crazy ideas which I might mention at the end of this game if you're still not bored off your skull. Okay, so I had white, and the game started in Queen's Indian Defence, which is knight to f3. And the Queen's Indian Defence is an opening I still play nowadays, and it's an opening I very much enjoy playing. I seem to have very good results with this line. Magnus now played b6, which is the standard way to play. And here I played, well, a line which I don't play so often now. The move I play now is g3. And I like this line because my bishop on g2 gives good tactical chances later on. So this is the line I play more commonly now. But knight to c3, of course, developing a piece cannot be such a shabby move. And one of the main ideas is black quite often goes bishop to b4 here now, which is the main idea in this variation. Often black wants to wait until the white knight has gone to c3 in order to play bishop to b4, because then when black exchanges his bishop for the knight, he can double white's pawns, and this is a typical Nimzo-Indian idea. If black goes bishop to b4 check with a knight still on b1, white can choose between knight d2 and bishop to d2. And this is, okay. And after this, I used to play a line with bishop to g5, and a very sort of sharpish line. Quite interesting. White can go knight d2 and go for a quick e4, and you get very interesting positions here. Now, Magnus avoided bishop b4. He's got to stop me playing pawn to e4. That would be very pleasant for me. And here he played bishop to b7. And now I played the so-called Petrosian system, and that is a3. This keeps control of the b4 square, stops a bishop coming to b4, and therefore the black bishop can't find a good square. So it's very Petrosian-like, because Petrosian was a master of stopping his opponent's ideas. So you waste the tempo though, but it's not really a waste because you stop your opponent's bishop coming to the best square. So it's pros and cons. Magnus now hits out with d5, and here I took on d5, knight takes d5, and this allows the bishop on b7 to remain on quite a good diagonal. Bishop to d2 now, and after knight takes c3, this gives me chances to take my bishop on c3. And then if you can imagine my bishop on c3, later on, after maybe e4 and even d5, the bishop really comes to life. Knight d7 now played, so black develops and doesn't block the bishop in. And here nowadays, I probably would, if I was white now, I think a much more sharper way to play and a more fun way to play this position is trying to achieve the e4 break. This is one way to take advantage of black not capturing on d5 with a pawn, because now that black hasn't captured on d5 with a pawn, that means there's less control for black on the e4 square. So a way I can do this, well, I can't really go e4 straight away because knight takes c3 and black can probably get away with taking on e4. Might be some gambit lines here, but I don't really believe them. But here, if I had this again, I think queen to c2 would be top of my moves to play here. And I can even castle queenside and go e4 next with a very aggressive, double-edged, interesting position. But I played in a more positional manner in the game. After knight d7, I played knight takes d5. My opponent now played pawn takes d5, and here I played b4. And I remember reading about this move somewhere before the game in some annotations, and it said it gave white a slight advantage, which I'm not really sure it does. But it's a more positional way to play. I'm trying to stop or make it difficult for black to play c5, and it's all about pawn structure. Now, it's all about the pawn structure I'm going for here. So, if black doesn't break with c5 or a5, then the bishop on b7 is going to be quite stuck behind the pawn on d5. Black's aim, pawn structure-wise, is to try to make my pawn on d4 move later on, so he can play d4 himself, and then his bishop comes to life. Otherwise, the bishop on b7 is a very bad piece. So, the idea of b4 is to try to contain this play that he has on the queen side and stop his typical breaks. And on the other hand, I have a majority in the center, so I can finish my development and later on play on the c file, play on the open c file. So this is the positional idea. So bishop g5. And now before I play e3, e3 here would make my bishop on d2 a bad piece, because look, it's stuck behind all my pawns which are on dart squares. So you don't want to do this in chess. You want to put your piece on the best squares. So bishop to g5 is quite a clever move, because now at least after a sequence which happened like f6, well, this weakens his king side a little bit, bishop to h4, I want to play e3, but my bishop is on the other side of my pawn structure. Now, there are a couple of moves here. My opponent played a5, immediately trying to do something with a pawn structure on the queen side. Another idea would have been c5 here, trying to break like this. And here, bishop to g3 would have been my intended idea. And again, I don't want to really take on c5 too early, because my opponent might be able to unleash his bishop later on. So something like this would have been normal. But the way Magnus played with a5, very typical idea. And if I take on a5, well, rook takes a5, and now he has the better pawn structure because my a3 pawn is incredibly weak, and I don't want to allow this. So normally the way to deal with a5 in these type of positions is to push on with b4 here. So let me just find out where my analysis has disappeared to. a5, it's not taking there. We don't want to do that. Problem is, when you're analysing lines, it's so easy to get lost in the analysis here. So let me just try to find out where I am. There's too many sidelines I've included here. So bear with me. This is quite annoying now. Well, I know the move I played, and the move I played was b5 here. Okay, b5. And this is, again, trying to keep the bishop on b7 closed in, not allowing my opponent to open the a file, and later on, if I can complete my development, double up on the c file, c6 will be a big hole for me to attack. So that's why after this move, b5, which I'm going to try. Oh no, sorry, I played b5 is the other idea I could play here. You can tell it was played 15 years ago. This game, my memory is not as I can't remember 15 years ago. I can't even remember last week. You know, 15 years ago, what was I doing 15 years ago? Well, I was 20 years old, and it was a rave generation. So I think around there, I was going to a number of garage raves in Battersea, London, to my parents' horror, and playing a bit of chess on the side to keep my brain a bit fresh. So that was what I was doing all those years ago. But anyway, yeah, bishop g3 is another way to play this position when I can try to swap off his bishop on d6. And his bishop on d6 is annoying because it attacks my pawn structure. Magnus kept his position under control. I swapped off the bishops. Generally, exchanges are okay for me here because, again, if I finish my development, I will have pressure on the queen side. But now I play b5. Now b5. And what I've done, I've got rid of his bishop, which was quite annoying attacking my a pawn in the last variations. Magnus now broke with c5. Very logical. He doesn't want to play quiet moves because then I will manage to hopefully block his pawn onto c7. So he breaks out. I take on pass-on. And now by doing this, we have another pawn structural change. Now, this is good and bad. In one way, you know, pawn islands. Pawn islands, when you one pawn island which have pawns next to each other. And I have one pawn island, d4, e2, like this. This is called a one pawn island because they're all next to each other. They can all defend each other. And then I have another pawn over here. So I have two pawn islands. Magnus has three pawn islands. And in particular, the pawn on d5 can be weak later on. But on the positive side for Magnus, he has potential to create a pass pawn with b4. So all of these factors made the position roughly equal. But one of the main things is that his king side is a little bit weakened by the move f6. This weakens his light squares on the king side, which we'll see shortly. b5, using his pawns. Bishop d3, of course. g6. Now, if it had castled, then I would have played a move like queen to maybe even b1 here. And again, in this kind of position, normally black would like to play g6, but this is only okay really with a pawn on f7. Here, I can force a draw immediately with bishop takes g6, or I can go h4, h5, attacking this pawn structure. So castling immediately, not preferable. My opponent played g6, which is the safer option. And now queen c2, so I'm pressurizing this pawn a little bit. King to f7, and again, I want to pressurize this diagonal, which I have my pieces lined up. And now I play one of my favorite moves. It's time to get Harry into the game. Harry the h-pawn, h4, 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 a4, Harry4, whatever you like to say. Cool, my jaw was going a bit mental there. Ow. Okay, so h4. And I just want to use this pawn as a battering ram to create weaknesses on the light squares over here. So around here I'm certainly better, but Magnus kind of outplays me a bit later on. Surprise, surprise. He's only, like I say, he's lifting his hand over the board. You know, he has to move, he has to stand up to see the board, you know, this little kid. Knight b6 and now h5. And here a very interesting sacrifice. Now, what does black do on the king side? Because he's in a lot of trouble over here and it's quite hard. So he just gives up this pawn on g6 by playing knight to c4. And I think this shows a lot of talent here already. A very talented move because he just gives up a pawn in order to get a double-edged attack on the queen side. So this is a very interesting way to play. Okay, well I have to take this pawn. So I win a pawn now, king e7. But Magnus has good play against my a3 pawn and weaknesses on the queen side. Now knight to h4, good move. I've got an f5 square. And when you see squares, when you see outposts, you have to maneuver your pieces to these outposts. And already here, black is in some trouble. He has to avoid knight to f5 check, king to d7. And now queen to b3. So defending my a3 pawn. And I'm a pawn up here. So if I can consolidate, stop his queenside play, I should be better. Now b4, so Magnus uses his queenside majority. Very, very sensible idea. And here a4 is a mistake from me because funnily enough, after this move, my opponent now plays excellently for a quite considerable amount of the game. And here I close things down. In actual fact, I have an opportunity here to play, instead of this move, to play bishop f5 check. And where does his king go now? His king really hasn't got any great squares. It probably should go somewhere like d8. But now this breaks the coordination of his rooks. And I can take on b4. And after the queens come off, take rooks off. And here, my bishop very calmly defends his b pawn. So as long as I'm careful by playing something like rook h3, b3, and now even knight to f3, look at his bishop on a8. I have a very nice endgame position. My king can come round and I'll probably win more of his weak pawns with a winning position. So this was the way I should have played. I should have taken my opportunity to open up more lines. a4 looks quite natural, but in actual fact, this gives my opponent now chances to play very cleverly. So what does Magnus do now? Excellent move. Well, king c7 first. So his king is now also... Look at how his king has found the safest square on the board. It comes around to b6, finding a safe square. So obviously showing talent again. But in actual fact, he misses a very good move now. He should have gone knight takes e3. A little tactical blow. And if he'd have played this, I'm in trouble. If I take with a pawn, the queen comes into g3 check. And if I take with the queen, then he can go rook to e8. And after something like this, pawn takes e3. My position, I feel, is worse here. Even though I have the two rooks to the queen, his queen can quickly come into my position. And he has a very dangerous passed b pawn. So I think I prefer black here. So he should really take it on e3, a move which I'm sure he'd play blindfolded nowadays. So he missed that chance. But king c7 again is logical move. Okay, so now I continue king e2, so I want to defend this square. And here an excellent move, f5, really brilliant move. And this is a sign of someone who has great potential. Looks like he's dropping a pawn, but what he's doing is, my coordination of my pieces is actually now rather dubious. If I take with the knight, I lose my bishop on g6. So I have to take my bishop, and now queen to f6. Now he hits my knight on h4. I have to defend that h3, and here Magnus went for too much from the position. He misses another chance. He should just play rook takes h4 here, and after rook takes h4, queen takes f5. Let's say rook to h1, he goes rook to e8. Materially, I'm a point up, but I prefer Magnus's position because if I check him anytime, his king sits on b6 very calmly. And there are some major problems. If my a pawn drops, it's horrible. His knight is excellent. And he always has dangerous ways his pieces might come into my position. My king is slightly weak here. And again, I wouldn't be able to tell this story had this happened because very likely I'd have lost. In the game, things went differently. He went rook on A to F8 first with the same idea, but now this gives me a chance to do things differently. I can go queen to D3, and here he takes on H4. But this is a mistake that he would never play in the last, I would say, 8 years of chess, because a rule is I take my pawn, of course, dangerous pawn. He takes on F5. I take the queens off, and a general rule is when you have this material imbalance of 2 minor pieces, let's say 2 knights, knight and bishop, or 2 bishops against a rook, then 2 minor pieces work much better earlier on in the game, in the opening, in the middle game, even in the late middle game. But in the ending, the rook is much more powerful than the 2 minor pieces. It has much more open lines to go along, and especially if you have a passed pawn, which old Harry the pawn, is my little lander. He's going to come and lay an egg on H8. He's going to rest there and go, oh, didn't that feel good? And lay his egg on H8. And here, I think my opponent after H5 is serious trouble here. This pawn is just a runner. The game continued, B3, so he's got to use Barry, but Barry's a bit slower than Harry. H6, rook to F8, H7. Look at Harry is doing a Usain Bolt. He's going, meow. He's really going for the world record on H8. Too fast. B2. Quick question for you here. Where do you move your rook now on A1? So where would you move this piece? Where is it best placed? Try to move it to a square where it has dual purpose. Rook to G1. And here I can defend this pawn, but I can also threaten to come to G7 and G8. Obviously best. Rook to H8, and now rook to G8. And this now is a winning position for me. My opponent tries to queen, so Barry lands first, but Barry's only going to be short-lived. And another problem my opponent had was here, if he goes rook takes H7 in this position, which maybe he missed, I take on H7 with check. So this is going to be winning, because one of my rooks will come back in the nick of time. So my opponent instead tries queening, but now I have what's called an intermezzo move. If I take the queen, he takes on H2, not so clear. But here I can go, first of all, rook G7 check. And now I can take his queen, getting rid of his dangerous pawn. And now I simply try to put my rook upon G8. So rook H1, bishop F5, defending H7. So if I go rook to G8, he can basically take on H7. But now I have this rook check on H6. And here his only move would have been bishop to E6. But now rook to G8 wins the game quite simply. I think this is the best move. I have other moves here as well. Rook to G6 is probably even better, actually, because I was just thinking if I go rook to G8, my opponent can actually take on H7. But if I go rook to G6, he's dropping the bishop on E6. Rook to E8, and now we just take on E6 anyway, and Harry has the last laugh. Harry fulfills his fantasy of becoming a queen, getting ready for Mardi Gras. There he goes, and he becomes a queen on H8. So that was my game against Magnus. Okay, it was by no means a perfect game, but it had its moments, had quite exciting points, and you know, I'm getting attacked by wasps in my room here. I think I've got a wasp nest upstairs, and they keep coming in. Not very nice, but obviously nice to beat Magnus. But you know, like I say, put it into perspective. It was 2005. He wasn't as strong as he is now, but at least I've got bragging rights now. I did play him again once more in a 5-minute tournament in Iceland, and this is a tournament I actually did very well in. I came second behind Judith Pogar, second of my own in the open section, and I finished ahead of Magnus, Vishiwan Anand, and a number of other people in this Blitz tournament. Maybe when my brain was a little bit sharper, you know. But I played Magnus in this 5-minute tournament. It was the only game I lost, and it was quite funny because we got down to a position where he only had a rook left, and I had a bishop, a knight, and some pawns, and he took my king. The goddamn cheat. He took my king. The world champion took my goddamn king. Can you believe it? He took my king, the world champion. How many times has the world champion took a king? It was a 5-minute game. I couldn't believe it. I left my king somewhere and he went, rook takes king. I'm like, you can't do that. And he's like, and then I just like, oh, you're going to be world champion. If you can take kings, you know, if you've got that trick, you've got that magic already, then you're going to be world champion. But clearly, Magnus, world champion, deserves to be world champion now. How strong is he going to become? I don't know. I mean, he could potentially become the best ever chess player in the history of the game. He's young. He's world champion. He's going to he already has the highest rating. He's a brilliant player, and he plays in his own style. This is why I like Magnus. Talk about him in the chat below. I like Magnus because he has a unique Magnus style. If he starts to play proper openings, he will get stronger, and he's unbelievably talented and strong player. So amazing brain. Other stories about him. I remember he's got this photographic memory, and you know, Magnus can you know, on a number of he just remembers facts that other people can't remember, and he's got, you know, like Bobby Fischer was said to read a chess book in a couple of days and remember everything. Magnus Carlsen, I think, remembers every chess position he probably encounters. Like people like me who've gone too many raves in my life can't remember yesterday, you know. So Magnus has got this amazing brain, but I think he could you know, be one of the greatest champions ever. Nice guy away from the board, you know. Played him a couple of times in Blitz chess, met him a couple of times in Norway. It seems like a very pleasant guy, and yeah, interesting. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that game. I mean, showing off a little bit there. I needed a game to do for analysis. It's quite an easy game to find, so you know, there you go. And that's my claim to fame, my one claim to fame. So you know, you got to enjoy your. What was it? Was it Andy Warhol who said everyone gets a minute of fame? Andy Warhol. Everyone gets 1 minute of fame. It's something like that. I remember watching the Doors film where Andy Warhol gave Jim Morrison the phone and said, God's on the phone, you can speak to God. Interesting character, old Andy Warhol. Wasn't too keen of his art, but you know, interesting character. And okay, what other ideas for my stream on Sunday? Well, I've got some other crazy ideas of blitz chess. You know, I'm just like, you know, throwing the ideas out there. So obviously one of them was this drinking idea. I'll think about that one. I might do it with checks. That's a good idea. Another idea is to play blindfold chess. Now, I haven't done this for about 15 years. So I could get my mate sitting here, or my girlfriend who plays chess, and I'll play a like 10-15 minute game. I will be blindfolded. Don't worry, I've got loads of them around the house. And my mate or girlfriend will basically say the move, and I will call out the move, and then they make the move on the computer. So you'll see me in this chaos playing blindfolded, and it will happen. Now, that's one funky idea. I had this bizarre idea of doing a YouTube video with a fish tank over my head. Now this fish tank will fill up with water, okay, slowly, bit by bit, suffocating me. I'm going to do Houdini, and then what I have to do is finish and win a game of blitz before the water kills me. You know, I've always liked my idea of being a bit of a Houdini character. Another idea, I want to go down a downhill slope on a mountain bike as quick as I can, because I used to love mountain biking, with a GoPro and a microphone attached to me. And what I've got to do is like basically recount one of the best games of chess into the microphone while I'm going 30 miles per hour down a hill and trying to nearly kill myself. I like, you know, these ideas are bonkers. You know, I've got some, you know, they're wicked ideas. So tell me which ones of these like. If you've got any other great ideas, I like the idea of extreme chess. Where can I play chess? It's not going to cost me money because, you know, I'm not made of money. But like, if you've got any ideas, tell me, send them in. Also, thanks for your likes, thanks for your subscribes. Please check out GingerGM. .com for the DVDs you can digitally download, which, you know, helps me out. And I will now crack on with finishing the 2-part D4 DVD, which should be one of the best DVDs I've done. Hopefully I'll get it done hopefully it'll be out ready in a month, but you know, fingers crossed. Okay, well, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining a bit longer than I expected this video. Cheers, and I'll see you soon.